Africa Investment Forum is all about closing deals. The forum's unique value proposition is its ability to crowd in private sector financing for transformative projects with huge development impact. To achieve this, the forum profiles transformational projects and then matches these projects with prospective investors. I'm Kenneth Igbomo, and I'll bring you some of the views from the sidelines of the 2023 African Investment Forum Market Days from Marrakech, Morocco. So let's start by taking stock of the achievements of previous editions of the Africa Investment Forum.
You know, in the last 4 years that we've done the Africa Investment Forum, we've been able to mobilize investment interest of over $143 billion. Well, let me just break it down for you, for example, some of the things that are really happening. If you take, for example, one of the big projects we brought in at the first Africa Investment Forum was the $24 billion liquefied natural gas project, which is for Mozambique. That's all done, and that's all going very, very well. We have investment that we actually help to do with OCP here in financing. We have investment we're doing with the Indorama in Nigeria, this is on the fertilizer sector, and also even Dangote that we are putting there. We have investment that we are doing also for critical energy corridors, projects that we are doing. So these are all going to change Africa from whether it's road, whether it's rail, whether it's ports, whether it is in the manufacturing of fertilizer or in renewable energy. So this is all going to change a lot. And here at the Africa Investment Forum for this year, we're even looking at new things. Transport corridors, for example, major corridors like the Lobito corridor, where the African Development Bank is working with the with the African Finance Corporation, with the U.S. government and with the European Union in building a very vast corridor that will link Angola all the way to DRC and Zambia and open up all the mines that are there to be able to connect in transport of commodities to minerals to the port in Angola. Or we were able to also secure $15.6 billion for the Lagos-Abidjan highway corridor that will link everything from Abidjan, from Lagos to Cotonou, to Lomé, to Accra, and to Abidjan, which will change everything over there. Or you can take the case of the issue of rail transport. The rail system, which is the East African Rail Corridor, that is now going to be linking the Tanzania to Democratic Republic of Congo and to Burundi. So these are all and many more the types of investments that we are making in the Africa Investment Forum, through the Africa Investment Forum, that would change the opportunities for Africa and help us to better integrate.
Yeah, because the past 3 years has shown us that Africa needs to be a bit more deliberate to build resilience in some key sectors and also leverage on its comparative advantage, and like the emerging EV markets. And I'd like you to speak to how the bank is working with member countries in this regard.
I've always said it, that the fastest way to poverty is to keep exporting commodities, because you're actually constantly vulnerable to the volatility in the commodity prices. And of course, you're stuck at the bottom of the value chain. And so we've made that mistake in the past. We are correcting that very, now that everything that Africa produces, whether it's minerals, oil, gas, or metals, it should add value to that. Now, we are now in an era in which we are all green. And the electric vehicles, as you say, is the new revolution that we are having. Now, the size of that electric vehicle market today is $7 trillion. And by 2050, that's going to go to roughly $57 trillion. Think about it. But what are they going to use for it? They're going to have to need platinum. They're going to have to need copper. They're going to have to need lithium. They're going to have to need graphite. And guess where most of those things are? They are in Africa. So we at the bank now feel that we cannot have a $7 trillion market today going to go to $57 trillion market tomorrow, and Africa's minerals and metals, green metals, are simply going to be feeding the wealth of others. No. We've learned quite a lot, because when you add value to things, that's your highway to wealth. That's your gateway to wealth. And that's why we got together even with the Afri-Exim Bank and also with other partner institutions, including the African Union as well, to look at, and the Africa Finance Corporation, to look at the green metal industry, opportunities that we have. And so we did a study, and we asked Bloomberg to do some analysis for us, Bloomberg and consulting groups. And guess what they found? They found that if you were actually going to manufacture a 10,000-ton lithium-ion battery, precursor battery, and you look at doing that in Africa, or you look at that of doing it in United States or in Poland or in China, well, the cost of doing it in Africa is 3 times less than in the United States, than in China or in Poland. So, which means that it's better to actually locate a lot of those lithium-ion battery manufacturing plants in Africa. And that's why we've taken this very seriously. In fact, I think in about a week or two from now, there's going to be a summit that is going to bring together Zambia and bring together Democratic Republic of Congo that we are supporting to be able to do that. And so we have to make sure that we industrialize, and we're very big about that, and that's why at this Africa Investment Forum, we're talking about that.
The Africa Investment Forum continuously leads productive engagements with both existing and new stakeholders to diversify and deepen the investor and partner base. Let's hear from some of the founding partners of the forum.
For the last 4 years, we have been talking about the need for structural transformation of the African continent, and for us to have more value capture, more value retention in Africa, especially because that is how you create jobs, that's how you grow jobs, improve the quality of jobs over time. And this for us is very important, that we have this convergence and this consensus about the way for us to move forward in Africa. So I'm very glad that everybody has come to accept this, which is why I want us to focus on the why, because it's a long and difficult journey. So if we understand the why we're doing it, then the how becomes easy, because we know what we're going to get, at the end of the journey. So really, it's good and topical for us to focus on how to industrialize and unlock Africa's value chain. And we have several examples. We have the first carbon neutral certified industrial zone in Africa. And it's again along value chains, both for agriculture and mining. And we are expanding on that team, and we're exporting that to several other jurisdictions. So for us, this is a good day for us. Last time we were in Cote d'Ivoire, we got an award for African Champion. Again, it's all around the team for value capture, value retention, and continent. So particularly unlocking Africa's value chains is an important topic. And I want us to focus on the ones that are topical and where I see the need for us to seize the moment, especially as Africans. And it's on the critical minerals.
Once again, this Africa Investment Forum is proving to be a transactional forum where we're talking about project deals, moving things forward. Yesterday, I had the honor to co-chair a boardroom jointly with Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania, and we discussed 2 specific projects, a railway project and then a port project, fantastic project with great development impact, but also fantastic expected return on equity for investors, a lot of interest. And just now I chaired a project that Africa 50 is co-developing with our partner, Power Grid of India, which will be the first power transmission PPP in Africa. Huge amount of interest from lenders, investors. In fact, the project is oversubscribed. That shows that Africa is bankable. Infrastructure in Africa is bankable. There's a lot of interest from investors for well-structured projects, and we were doing the first transmission PPP in Africa in Kenya, but many countries would actually follow and also have approached us to do transmission PPP in their countries.
It's good to see innovation coming in terms of the models. But the last time I spoke to you, we talked about your fund, and it was kicked off in Togo. And I can imagine a lot of work has gone into project preparation phase for some projects. I'm trying to imagine if we're going to see some green shoots play out from that fund coming soon.
Well, absolutely. We spoke about 2 funds. First, the Acceleration Fund that we signed a number of investors in Togo. In fact, 17 African institutional investors are expected to back that fund when we finalize with financial close soon. Stay tuned. Financial close, first close, I should say, for this fund will arrive very quickly. That demonstrates that we can bring together a lot of African investors, sovereign wealth funds, Nigerian sovereign investment authorities, other sovereign wealth funds, pension funds from Africa, eager to finance Africa infrastructure. So we are working on achieving first close for this fund and deploy the capital into a bankable infrastructure project in Africa. But also talk to you about the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, which is a project development fund that Africa 50 is putting together with the African Development Bank and the African Union Commission. This one will be making a major announcement at COP28 to raise project development capital and resources to build up the pipeline of bankable, green, climate-friendly infrastructure projects in Africa. This pipeline will be available for investors to come in and invest on those projects. So a very exciting time in Africa. We are calling for many investors to come in and take a look. I think if they take a look, they will be satisfied.
This kind of forums are actually very, very important for Africa because it really brings together all the policymakers, the decision makers, and we have seen also at the level of presidents, they are there from Africa, and also MDBs, multilateral development institutions, financial institutions, partners. So it's really very important to see that it is very much selected, I would say, audience who come and attend to tackle challenges, that is facing Africa, and one of them is, of course, unlocking the Africa's value chains. I think this is about time because Africa today we have seen a lot of really efforts to unlock these, value chains and make Africa more prosper through its people, through its projects, through its transactions. In addition to that, we as a group, we have reaffirmed our commitment since we were founder partner of this very important forum. We've been always supportive to the initiatives that comes out of this forum, and I hope that we will continue to do so.
The theme of the forum this year is Unlocking Africa's Value Chains, quite apt and critical to help the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
So as you can see, at the African Investment Forum, what we do is we bring all parties that are critical to making projects bankable and successful around the table. So that includes governments, that includes regional economic communities, that includes regulators, that includes project promoters, and that includes both strategic investors as well as financial investors. And so we continue to really have dialogue around, projects that have made great progress, that also have specific asks. And we actually bring them to what we call the AIF boardrooms. I think we have about 40 boardrooms this year. I once again don't want to preempt things, but there will be announcements, tomorrow by President Adesina on what we've been able to achieve in the various boardrooms, as well as some more color on which of the value chains and which of the sectors were covered overall in these boardrooms.
But in terms of the projects, tell me which of them excites you?
So I've just come from really what excites me the most, which is the regional corridor projects, yeah? And for me, this is really what would unlock value chains overall. And this is where we look at, the logistic network, from ports, rail, roads, in an intermodal sense, waterways. And then we make sure that we have industrialization taking place along those corridors, taking advantage of, the key, transportation routes to transport goods from production centers to consumer centers. We are prioritizing various corridors across Africa. Today, we discussed the Lobito corridor from Angola, linking DRC and Zambia. And for me, this is really the excitement because we have to industrialize Africa. We have to use these transport or these economic corridors to really industrialize Africa, increase intra-African trade, and take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
I think we're at a very important juncture right now because the world needs to decarbonize very, very quickly. And this creates an opportunity for Africa. We all know that Africa has the solution to help the world decarbonize just in terms of our natural resources, some of the lowest costs of generation of renewable energy across the world, whether it's solar, wind, geothermal, and also we have a lot of land, significant amount of land. And many of the countries in the global north who need to decarbonize as quickly as possible are looking for solutions. So we've been talking about, green hydrogen, green ammonia, and other hydrogen derivatives. We have in Europe the carbon border adjustment mechanism that is coming up, will be introduced by 2025. where companies are going to pay an additional tax if they have carbon in their value chain. So this represents an opportunity. That's why we're talking about value chains. There are many companies that need to decarbonize. If you take BMWs being exported from South Africa into Europe, depending on coal production, many of these companies need to diversify their energy mix. And what does that involve? That involves not only being able to create the renewable energy, but you need to have processes that can allow you to create the derivatives, whether it's green aluminum, green metals, green ammonia. In so doing, you're going to reskill the population. You're going to help drive industrialization. And typically, you will also contribute to Africa's own energy access provision. Because if you have a large 50 megawatt solar plant, you have to connect to the local grids as well. Although the investment case will be based on maybe the export story, we help generate more foreign exchange for Africa. So this time, it's a different model of development because we're talking about growing skills, growing jobs, and Africa being part of the solution we need for the world's decarbonization.
In this regard, we have a big potential with all sectors. If you look at the agriculture sector, it's huge. You look at the mining sector, in particular the critical minerals that are very important for the energy transition of the world. Africa can play a key role and transform locally its critical minerals instead of just exporting minerals and not having any value to other countries. Where you heard it this morning was the president of the AFDB. According to a Bloomberg study, building the lithium batteries on the continent for the electric vehicles is 3 times cheaper than doing it in the US, in Poland, or in China. So we should definitely push to do these transformations in Africa. And for that, everybody has their role to play, whether it's the African governments, the public sector, whether it's us, the multilateral development banks, whether it is the private sector, the developers. Everyone has their fair share on this, and it is a must for Africa if we don't want to be just playing catch up.
Yeah, because if we're going to develop at the scale that we want, especially in the emerging industries, like you rightly mentioned, scale is important, and getting a pipeline of projects, to meet Africa's needs and even surpass expectations is very, very critical. And I'd like you to speak to what the bank is doing in this area.
Skill is very important, not only at government level with the capacity that the government needs to face the private sector and structure these partnerships in a win-win situation. That is very important. But skills also of the youth, because these are jobs of today and jobs of the future. And the African youth must be trained in that area. So our, let's say, vocational training schools, for example, can play a very key role. Our universities can play a key role. But we need to refocus more on science and technology. For many past years, we've been training people in subjects and disciplines that are not probably in line with the requirements of the job market. Only few jobs are created with those type of training and those type of education. That has to change. We need to have a shift so that the new industrial revolution, the green industrial revolution that has started and that will be coming, is not something that that Africa is missing. That's why the bank has a human capital department that is not only advising countries, but also financing universities, financing, let's say, vocational training schools, like we did, for example, in Rwanda, helping the Rwandan government in partnership with a major US university build a pure tech university where 97%, almost 100% of the students get a job even before finalizing their education. So these are the kind of success stories that the bank is trying to replicate, because human capital is key, not only from the training perspective, but also from health perspective. We have to combine both. It's like running the marathon while changing your shirt, but you have to do it.
Yeah, because another area that I'd like to speak to is capacity building. Yes, we have these emerging industries coming in. Governments are sitting down on resources that could transform the world. And it's right for the government to have the expertise to be able to broker deals with the international community in more favorable terms to them. And I'd like to know what the African Development Bank is doing in terms of partnering with governments in this area.
If you look at, for example, in green infrastructure, because we need to green our infrastructure, it is inevitable. Whenever we can maximize, for example, let's say I give one example. Whenever we can maximize renewable energy for access to electricity, it is in our interest to do it, not only financially, but morally, environmentally. This is something that we need to do. Even if we are, let's say, a producer of oil and gas, it's better to export that oil and gas so long as you can find a buyer. There will be one day in the future where maybe nobody will buy it because the whole world will have moved on. And so maximizing renewable energy, exporting your oil and gas, and ideally transforming your gas actually into petrochemicals, into fertilizer, instead of just exporting raw LNG, for example. This is something that our countries actually must do. But if you want to industrialize, you need to burn something though. And today, using, for example, green hydrogen as a fuel for factories, let's say for the cement industry, for the steel industry, for the aluminum industry, is not yet very profitable. But one day, we'll have to use clean energy to fire our industries, because one day is coming soon. If you want to export transformed manufactured products, you'll have to pay some carbon tax on it. If you add the cost of carbon tax to your cost of production, your product might not be competitive if you are using, let's say, fossil fuel to power your industries. One day we'll have to move on. But for now, on the electric sector, we can maximize renewable energy. So the goal should be maximize renewable energy in electricity sector, use the least polluting, let's say, fossil fuel you can find for powering your industries, and position ourselves for the time when, let's say, for example, green hydrogen is competitive, that you can use, for example, to fire your industries instead of using polluting instruments.
If Africa will truly unlock its value chains, transport corridors will play a pivotal role in Africa's integration outcomes. The African Development Bank says it has provided about $13 billion to finance road corridor projects between the year 2004 and 2022.
African Development Bank has financed 25 transport corridors, constructed over 18,000 kilometers of road, 27 border posts, and 16 bridges for a total amount of $13.5 billion US. Now, let me share with you some examples of these transformative regional corridors. The bank's investment in the Mozambique-Beira corridor transport system is helping to reduce transport costs of imports and exports for Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Now, it was a momentous occasion on the 10th of May of 2021 when the Kazumgula Bridge was officially commissioned by the presidents of Botswana and Zambia. This $259 million strategic bridge, financed by the African Development Bank, the Japanese International Development Agency, and the European Union Africa Infrastructure Trust Fund, contributes to regional connectivity in the North-South corridor and the integration of the Southern African development community. The $2.7 billion Nacala Rail and Port project in Mozambique connects Mozambique and Malawi, strengthening export competitiveness. It was financed by the African Development Bank, Japan Bank for International Cooperation, JBIC, the Musua Bank, Nippon Export and Investment Insurance, and the Export Credit Insurance Corporation of South Africa. Another one which I'm excited about because I just came back also from seeing it again is the Senegambia Bridge, financed by the African Development Bank and the European Union, which now connects Gambia and Senegal, reducing travel time by over 50% and improving trade between both countries. I think we need to put in place a systematic approach and, of course, a platform to identify and syndicate around the development of strategic regional corridors. And to achieve this, the Africa Investment Forum will now, from now, dedicate a special boardroom annually for regional corridors. These will foster greater collaboration, co-financing, and faster development of these strategic corridors in Africa.
Burundi's Minister of Infrastructure, Diodone Dukundane, speaks on the impact of the Central Corridor on trade integration in their region.
Benefited as a country, as a region, the Central Corridor region. These are 5 member states: Tanzania, Burundi, DRC, Rwanda, and Uganda. We already secured last year through the previous forum funding to develop our railway project that links Tanzania to Burundi. And the deal reached nearly $700 million US. And since then, last year, we embarked on procurement. And as we are talking now, we reached the stage of shortlisting contractors to build this railway line. I think this is a major step towards implementing this project. But also, as President Adesina was highlighting just a while ago, it's not a matter of building a railway or a road. It's a matter of making an impact. And our railway project, linking Burundi and Tanzania in the DRC, is a major route towards huge mineral deposits that exist in our region, in Burundi, DRC, and Tanzania. And also on this angle, we have made progress in terms of securing the future company that will extract these minerals. So we believe that in the next few months, maybe early next year, 2024, we will be talking of another story where the concrete activities on the ground would have happened. Now, lastly, to come back to your question, why should we be proud of talking of this SGR? Why shouldn't we do business as usual, build roads? In the last 5-6 decades, we've been investing in roads. But this time around, we came to realize that failing to invest in the standard gauge railway has been costly to our economy. Take some figures. We are a country that is located at 1,500 kilometers away from the seaport of Dar es Salaam. When you undertake a return trip, this makes 300 kilometers. And relying on roads means that you only carry 25 or 28 tons over a distance of 3,000 kilometers. But when you do the comparison with a railway in place, it will help us to save nearly $100 per ton. And if you are running a business of nearly 1 million tons per year, you understand that we will be saving not less than $70 million US only by using railway. In other words, if we don't do so, we'll be losing the same amount. So in the next 10 years, actually, we would have lost nearly $1 billion, and this is exactly the amount that is needed to build a railway. So it's high time, and I believe the audience should agree with us that Africa has no choice. If we are to go continental, if we are to really embark on the free trade continental area with its benefits across the continent, there is no other alternative.
The pace of Africa's urbanization requires infrastructural support. Urban population on the continent is expected to double to 1.2 billion people by the year 2050. The Mayoral Forum seeks to drive new collaboration between financial institutions, cities, states, and municipalities.
This Mayoral Forum launches what I hope, and we hope, is the beginning of a new collaboration between financial institutions, cities, states, and municipalities to accelerate the growth and development of Africa. It also shows that the priority that the partners and investors of the African Investment Forum will place on improving investments at subnational level projects. And some of the partners are here. I saw the president of the Development Bank for Southern Africa here. I wish to thank Jamie Cooper and our team, the founder and chair of the Big Win Philanthropy, and all our team for the collaboration and partnership with the African Development Bank in the development of this particular effort here today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, urbanization is taking place in Africa at a very fast and unprecedented pace. Today, more than 1/4 of the world's 100 fastest growing cities are in Africa. 3 mega cities. Lagos, and the governor of Lagos is right here. And I was introducing him to someone, and I said, well, that's, you see that little city, that, Lagos is so huge. The population is going to be almost 25 million people shortly. That's how big it is. We have the Cairo. We have Kinshasa. Of course, we have Addis Ababa that's also growing very, very rapidly. We have so many cities with more than 10 million people all across Africa. Africa is also home to at least 52 cities with over 1 million residents each. Africa is projected, therefore, to have the fastest urban growth rate in the world at 3.2%. By 2050, Africa's urban population is expected to double to about 600 million, from 600 million to 1.2 billion people. Just think about that. And by 2050, an additional 950 million people will be living in 13,000 urban centers. So essentially, Africa will be the home to the largest urban population in the world.
Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, shares his plans and how the state is looking to unlock some of its assets at this forum.
It's interesting to know that for such a long time, we've had all those assets sitting down and we've not been able to unlock them. So at this investment forum, it's a great opportunity. First, for all of us to be able to do a quick peer review, to hear other mayors and other governors and other investors, listen to what their challenges are, where they are, and what their plans are. And so with that, you really can get a sense that Africa, it's in the right direction, right? And it's only in forums like this that investors will meet, policymakers, and you can really, really deep dive and identify where the critical issues or points that you need to resolve, and how, would you be able to handle each other, right, and work together, and work and get, investment into the right direction. What are the financiers? What are they saying? You even as decision makers, what do you have, and how can you make the best of the opportunity that is here? And that's really what has happened here.
All right, so for Lagos State, what are some of the priority projects that you are presenting to investors here?
Well, it's pretty much the same 5-6 projects. I was at the Caribbean the other day, with AfroExim leading, so it's pretty much similar, projects, and the Fourth Mainland Bridge, the Lekki Port, the second phase of the Blue Line, the second phase now of the Red Line, our logistics food hub that we have 1-2 more bridges, the Omo Creek, we also have the Lagos Film City, so all of them are indeed, investable projects, infrastructural projects that investors can sit with us, and further, diagnose, because they are all ready to go, sort of, projects.
So, but what has been the feedback from investors then?
Well, they are pretty, we're going to some bilateral conversations now in which, we might have we might have deals to sign. I have my guys here as well. So there's no waste of time. If they want anything, we have all our documents, we have all the papers, so we're going to some closed sessions, one-on-one sessions, later today. So, you don't shave investors' head in their absence. Some are, they are in their tens of millions of dollars. But the strategy around what we're going to play here is all of the investment we're looking for. We actually want them to be domiciled in local currency. We want to be able to get out of the foreign currency risk. Yes, we might price them, we might come here, we might price them and say we're trying to raise $1 billion. But indeed, to draw down, we actually want, to raise this money or to borrow these funds or to make those investments in local currency. It will enhance, local, if we're deepening our own local currency, and it will also help us de-risk, foreign currency interest rate, risk, foreign currency risk, and all of it. So, indeed, it's a lot of money. So, if you want me to put some numbers to it, whatever it is, $1 billion, anyhow it is in local currency, maybe ₦1 trillion or whatever it is, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about.
Women play a critical role in the makeup of African economies, although they face many challenges in the business environment. At the Bedouin launch, many successful African women had the opportunity to share their success stories despite the financing gaps and odds against them in the business environment.
Thank you, everyone, and I'm so pleased to see you all here. And what strikes me in this room is the diversity. Women from different... thank you all for honoring the invitation. I'm looking at my friends from the past, new friends, old friends, and then of course, we're very opportune to have here with us a sitting head of state, the Honorable Prime Minister, Excellency Miamod. Yeah, that's a very well-deserved round of applause because she's 5 hours time, but you wouldn't know it inside her face. She just keeps going on. And I thank her very much for the honor she's done us by being with us, not just at the conversations of the heads of state, but also sitting with us here at our women lunch. I am very confident to face it head on and ensure that transactions are tailored towards obliterating the gaps. And I also thank very much in her presence the First Lady of Commerce. I don't know if she speaks English, I don't know. And I'd also like to, and next to her again is one of the first we have, thanks to our president, who I'm sure was ably assisted by the First Lady to name the very first senior vice president female. Swazi Shabalala. Thank you. Thank you for me. I was looking for the Honorable Minister Minister of Finance. I can't see her, but she was with us. Oh, she stepped out. So she was with us, and probably without her, we made it. You have to come because you're the only female founding partner on the AIF, and there she is, strong, supportive, brilliant as ever. Thank you very much. I'm not sure I want to go around the room, back and forth, because I'm seeing so many faces. I'm not going to stop. I'm seeing Yasin Fall. So thank you very much, Yasin, for being with us. And all right, I think this, just to talk a little bit about what the women as investment champions are. What we look at is the ordinary woman, is the phenomenal woman, is the extraordinary woman as well in our eyes, to seek out those who have not asked for it and then give them the help. I have a couple of people here who we've worked with through the years, who we've assisted in ensuring that they are the best in whatever you choose to be. And that those choices encourage all women to think very big. We were talking last night about basket making. I have absolutely no problem with those who make baskets for a living. But you must scale. You must make 1,000 baskets, 20,000 baskets. You must make sure
coming from a small country, that's particularly all more so. We, regrettably, do not have the institutional framework or the ecosystem that makes it easier for women to scale up. And the first obstacle is in your head. The first obstacle is in your head. Because most women feel, oh, I can do this well and I can do this well. But once we start to think about scaling up, then all of the obstacles come right in front of us. And we forget that daily we go through, over, under, above, first and foremost. If we don't look in the mirror and believe in our infinite possibilities, it will not happen. The second thing we need to do is to be able to have that informal network.
The First Lady and the First Lady of Africa. And and to thank Chinelo for the opportunity to be here, and to also thank every single one of you, for being here. I'm in the midst of greatness, and everyone who's here is really, really great to have to be here and sitting here today. From a development bank perspective, is that firstly, we are instrument is very supportive of women, including legislating opportunities for women. And as women, it's important for us that where we are, we make the change that we want to see in elevating women, because it all starts with us. Half of our EXCO is women. Almost half of our board is women as well, and we have specific targets that we have in our scorecard. And it's not just about making the investment; it's also about the suppliers.
If you recall that following the approval of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, it became clear that value chains have to be a big part of this expected trade in Africa. So that was the original genesis, if you like, of the unlocking the value chains. And we initially focused on agriculture, but we realized that there are opportunities, everywhere. And of course, what subsequently happened with COVID and the global supply chains, etc., emphasized the need to actually do this, in order to provide security of supply, for Africa. And then beyond that, we had the issues with the food, security as a result of the, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then, so it has, I think, all of these events, what they've done is to reinforce how important it is that we really build on this. And I think it's an appropriate, opportunity to have this discussion at the AIF. The AIF is, inviting, investors from all over the world, but also manufacturers, farmers, all kinds of entrepreneurs from all over the continent to say, how do we leverage what initially started off as crises, but are manifesting also as opportunities. So how do we leverage, these opportunities? We talk about green minerals. I'll be on a panel that's going to be discussing that. Obviously, there's it's a value chain. We have to go beyond just, mining and exporting to really building value chains around these green minerals in order to ensure that Africa extracts maximum value and uses and leverages this opportunity to develop.
Yeah, because we're looking at emerging industries here, and in terms of a model there of how to go about this, it's more or less a work in progress. And I'd like to know how the bank is working with countries with some of these minerals in these countries to build capacity in terms of how they leverage that industry to the maximum.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting discussion because, so there are two motivations here. Obviously, the effort to reduce emissions, and reach net zero by 2050. But also, I think the experience of COVID has taught the world that concentrating supply in one region is also not good. So we stand perfectly, at the junction of those two forces. But we need to understand that the reason why you have this concentration of supply is that there are pull factors, right? That, make those regions where supply is currently concentrated attractive. So we need to make sure that we are doing things here to make, African regions that have these minerals attractive as well. So what do we mean? We mean that we need to make sure that the infrastructure is there, without power, without roads, without rail, we can forget it. We will continue to just mine and export. But in addition to that, we also need to leverage technology. We need to leverage human capacity. Now, we are working with countries on how they can leverage this wealth that they have in the ground. But we also understand that, they don't have a lot of these things, the preconditions for making this successful. Now, there are pockets of these, capacities available in Africa. So I would say, first of all, we should be looking to see how we create African value chains. So if in Morocco you have certain expertise around, battery manufacturing, we should be looking at how they can work with the DRC and Zambia, for instance, with their lithium, to build capacity, for making at least precursors to the battery or even the full battery. If you look at what South Africa, I think South Africa will be producing electric vehicles, so there's a chain there that can happen, linking all of these countries. And the whole idea is that, is we leverage what's underground, but we leverage for Africa's benefit. Because this is the key, right? That you need to be able to leverage it for Africa's benefit. Because I expect that if we don't do that and we don't think carefully about how to do that, we will end up with colonization of these minerals.
Yeah, because the African Investment Forum is about deals. Yeah. It's about getting a pipeline of bankable projects to completion. Exactly. And I'm trying to imagine here, looking at what we're seeing play out in terms of the poly crisis we spoke about earlier, and what we're trying to do, getting more African investors to come on the table. Speak to what we're seeing play out in terms of what we can expect down the line in this forum. 72 hours last year was very productive. Yeah. What can we expect this next 72 hours?
Well, we have a number of boardrooms in key areas in, infrastructure. In particular, remains very important in Africa. I always say this, in a continent where 600 million people continue to lack access to electricity, you can't develop. It's impossible. It's impossible. And then if you don't have roads, you can't trade with each other. You cannot even, expect to do anything with, this wealth that sits underneath us. So I am optimistic that, despite the challenges, and all of us are very cognizant cognizant of the global challenges at the moment. We know what's happened to the global economy. We know the genesis of that. And again, you know, Africa sits as sort of a victim in some way of all of these global, you know, developments. But how do we turn, you know, that position or those forces in our favor? And I'm optimistic that, you know, we can have some very good, you know, projects coming out of this. And by the way, I mean, there are mining projects that are part of the boardrooms, you know, this year, because people talk about green minerals, forgetting that you still need aluminium to make, you know, electric vehicles. You know, the body is still the same material. So there's a lot of these minerals which we currently dig up out of the ground and we export them very efficiently, that we now have to, I'm hoping, start thinking about, you know, adding value to them. So
it's been an amazing 3 days here. You know, we were able to conclude with $34.82 billion. Imagine it, in less than 72 hours for the Africa Investment Forum 2023. And the projects go all, you know, different kind of sectors. A big one, of course, is the transport sector, the seaport, deep seaport, a big one here. You know, there's about $4.5 billion for NATO West for Morocco. There is another big rail project in East Africa with Tanzania. There is a rice project in Sierra Leone where they're looking to how to make rice be self-sufficient in rice. There are projects that were actually looking into how to turn the green metals into precursor, you know, lithium ion. There are also projects that were looking at digital technologies. You know, it's a whole range of things that we had, but it's been a phenomenal 3 days here, and we are also excited. As I've always said, Africa is a bankable investment destination.
All right, final question. Now, I know that the bank provides risk guarantee facilities for project comfort for investors, but there are some institutional investors who say, we don't want to invest in one project here, one project there. We want like a cluster, a portfolio of projects, and give us some kind of instrument, a bond maybe, to help us, to give us some more comfort. Are those category of investors catered to also?
Well, you know, one of the things that actually you saw here were different kind of funds, multinational funds that were actually at this Africa Investment Forum. And a big part of that is how will they deploy partial credit guarantees and partial risk guarantees to reduce the risk that investors do face when they want to invest in infrastructure. And we at the African Development Bank deploy that quite effectively. We've deployed to help, for example, Benin to raise more than 400 million euros. We're working right now on a transaction for Senegal. And we're also working on, you know, different other countries. For Rwanda also, we are working on a transaction. Cote d'Ivoire, we're working on a transaction. I think the fact of the matter is that partial credit guarantees to credit enhance these countries when they have to actually issue bonds do work with a huge amount of leverage. And we've seen that as a bank, and we'll continue to do more of it.
Over the years, the African Investment Forum has been known for bankable projects, deals, and transactions as they try to move the needle for investment on the continent here in Africa. But this year, there's a very unique exhibition happening at the African Investment Forum. And we're looking at an artist that is doing something very unique, turning waste to wealth. All right, thank you so much for your time today, Dosun. Quite an interesting exhibition we're seeing playing. Now, tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, what you're looking at here is an African warrior. I mean, it's my own interpretation of our strength, our tenacity, our energy, and our personality. So the sculpture was made out of recycled materials, precisely metal, both ferrous and non-ferrous metal. I mean, these are metal that litters of our environment, and I try to convert them into a magnificent sculpture that you're seeing behind me.
Tell us about your inspiration and how all of this got started.
Well, my immediate environment has always been my greatest inspiration. I mean, I live in Nigeria, where the country have a lot of people that produces waste, to litter the environment, and I feel I can be an ambassador to talking about recycling and repurposing the large amount of waste that threatens the ecosystem. So I started creating series of works like this about some 8-9 years ago, and since then till now, I have been busy rescuing the environment while also projecting and protecting our culture. Also, pushing out works that can, that can represent Africa in a good light, and also, saving the folklores, folk tales, and a lot of African stories that are gradually going to extinction.
Talking about projecting the African culture, I'm trying to imagine the footprints of your work right now. Where can we find your work across the globe?
Well, my works spreads across the globe. You see from the UAE, you see in Qatar, you see in Turkey, Istanbul, and Ankara. You see in Dubai. Then you see in Marrakech. Now this is Marrakech. One of my work is in Bahrain, and I have my works in the United States, different spread across United States, one in Canada, and, I'm losing counts now, but the works are just traveling by themselves. And I feel, I feel so good to feel that happen to me.
The 2023 African Investment Forum Market Days in Marrakech, Morocco is ending with many upsides. A total of $34.8 billion of investment interests were secured, and also a commitment from President Akinwumi Adesina to dedicate a special boardroom annually for regional corridors going forward. I'm Kenneth Igbomo. Enjoy the rest of your day.